What's up, good people? My name is AJ, and you are watching Straight Talks. The topic here today I thought was a pretty cool one that I got in a question to another video, and it's just about different forums online where I get information from in relation to the CFA program and the CFA exams. In a lot of my other videos, I've said things like, yeah, I read in this forum, or you can hear stories about that in that forum, and I just make mention to all these posts that other exam takers or exam passers in the CFA program have made, but I haven't made a ton of links or references to those posts, usually because they're buried somewhere, from 10 years ago, and I can't go and find the posts anyway. But I just like to share the stories from those. Someone asked me, hey, what forums are you looking at, and which ones should I be looking at? And so I'm going to answer that and also talk a little bit about which of the three forums that I'll talk about here have what type of information. I guess I'll just rank them here in terms of relative value towards helping you pass the CFA exam. So the first forum site that I think is most helpful is Reddit, specifically the subreddit called RCFA, which is probably the biggest, or I think I know that it's the biggest online forum or online community for discussions related to the CFA exams, because I've said on that subreddit that they are. A couple years ago, I definitely would not have ranked RCFA as the #1 online forum or online community for CFA tips, just because it was, and still is, a bit more informal than #2, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. But it's recently passed it for a couple reasons. #1 is just the sheer volume of test takers and test passers who are on that forum and share stories about their experience in the CFA program, and also answer other people's questions that they have about the program. Also, the fact that it's that online community, RCFA, seems to garner the most attention and support from actual upper level management or employees at the CFA Institute. So most specifically, I'm talking about the AMA posts, which, if you're unfamiliar with Reddit, it stands for Ask Me Anything. And even last year, we had Paul Smith, the old CEO of the CFA Institute, and in many years prior, we've had other ranking employees or managers at the CFA Institute get on Reddit, post an AMA thread and say, hey, this is who I am. For the next 8 hours, I'm going to be on Reddit answering any questions that all of you might have. And so you can get some really insightful information from people who know firsthand what types of conversations are being had at the Institute, or what decisions are going to be made, or why certain decisions were made the way they were, on a lot of the changes that you've seen with the CFA program. Now, I don't think they do a perfect job at answering the questions because, at least in my opinion, it seems like they'll answer about half of them. Now, you can't expect the Institute to answer all the questions they get on these AMA forums, because they'll get like thousands sometimes, because it is a really popular online community. But with the ones they answered, they typically seem to be answering questions that are either pretty straightforward, like based on data, or questions that reflect the CFA Institute in a bit of a positive light. In general, to me, it seems like they have ignored the questions that are critical of the CFA Institute for some of the changes that they've made. And this was especially evident recently in the last month, when the CFA Institute announced their changes to the structure of all three exams. And then they did an AMA forum asking or giving people the opportunity to ask them about those changes. Now, if you've seen any information on this, or if you've watched my own video about this topic, you'll know that the majority of candidates and charter holders are very unfavorable about these changes. So many of the comments on this AMA thread were negative or critical of the CFA Institute. So again, I think for the most part, they ignored most of those questions. So our CFA is not the perfect medium to get all your information about the CFA program, but that's okay, because it's not the only forum either. #2 on my list is going to be Analyst Forum, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with who have been involved with the CFA program for a little time now. If you're not familiar, I think Analyst Forum has probably been around for the longest out of all the online communities in relation to the CFA exams, and it always has been, and still is, the most academic based, in my opinion. So if you're ever looking for actual help on certain practice questions that you can't get your head around, that's the best forum to go to, in my opinion. There are a handful of members specifically that just do an awesome job at answering a huge volume of questions, but also answering those questions very accurately. If you've used that forum, you'll recognize a few of these names, but S2000 Magician is the most common one. His name is actually Bill in real life, and it seems like I probably asked 5 questions over the course of my studies for the CFA program on analystforum.com, and Bill answered 4 of them with a really detailed explanation on why I was confused in relation to, maybe like the way Wiley was presenting the solution to a question versus what the curriculum was presenting it as. And he's extremely helpful. My point is just that there are a lot of already answered questions on that forum. Odds are, 99% of the time, if you're unsure on how to answer a question, there's going to have been someone who was also unsure of that same question, and then there's an answer for it on analystforum.com. Really, the reason it's not number one on my list anymore is just because it seems like the Reddit subreddit has become more popular and there are more people using that. Otherwise, Analyst Forum would be the best. It was the best for a really long time, and it still could be. And finally is Wall Street Oasis. This is really an old school one, but I still think it's helpful, and I've used it a handful of times throughout the years and gotten some really cool insight on test study strategies. And I've actually based some of my strategies that I used in the CFA program on what I read on Wall Street Oasis, but also things like specific questions and how to tackle certain topics in the program. Wall Street Oasis was really known for some of the better discussions on like MBA versus CFA and comparing the CFA program to other academic challenges like PhD programs, just undergrad college programs in general. And it has some of the more well-known conversation pieces online that certain articles will reference back to from time to time when talking about total study hours that people spend. I think really one of the original, well, there's like 300hours.com, but one of the original posts or conversations that got the whole 300 hours thing to be a bit of a benchmark was on wallstreetoasis.com. So it was never just meant for the CFA program. I think like 15 years ago, the CFA program became its primary topic, but then that since left, went to Analyst Forum, and has since left there and gone to Reddit. But anyway, still some really useful information on a lot of the old threads that have been posted to that site. Honorable mention here too to our CFA jerk on Reddit. Check that out if you have any interest in it. So if you are someone like me who doesn't work in an office with a lot of other charter holders, and you just don't know a lot of other charter holders outside of a couple people, I guess in my case, then staying involved in an online forum or an online community I think is really helpful when studying for the CFA program. And I would look at those websites or forums that I mentioned here maybe every day, at least a few times a week during all of my studies in the CFA program. Always asking questions, always seeing what other people are confused about, and just having conversations with people. On Analyst Forum, there's even like a drinking fountain thread where you can just talk about random things, so that's kind of fun sometimes. But I think they're all helpful, and you should totally consider not wasting time on them, but using your time wisely in your pursuit towards the CFA charter. So thanks for watching.